Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. MeatEater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. MeatEater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new MeatEater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, MeatEater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
Hey, this is Tyler Jones, and you're listening to the Element Podcast. What's happening, all my woods people? Today is a beautiful day here in Texas, and we just got here, and it's very beautiful sitting in this AC within this Jeep, but as soon as we step outside, it is a sweat fest, and I am excited. KC, how you feeling, man?
Well, Tyler, I'm not feeling too great.
Yeah.
I developed a head cold while we were in Bozeman.
Yeah.
I felt it yesterday. It literally set on as we were driving back to Bozeman from the Yellowstone River. Yeah. So I felt it happen. I was like, oh, no, not good. But I'm excited to be home, and I'm very sad to be gone from Montana. And it's a really weird feeling. It's almost like I just came home from a Colorado elk hunt. Very similar situation.
Yeah, it is for sure. I mean, and I'll tell you this. I had the same thing about a day before you did. And it only lasted, I felt like, 24 hours. So maybe you're like closing in on...
I'm on like 26 hours right now, so hopefully it'll be going soon.
Maybe you're closing in.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I felt like that it came to fruition because of the smoke.
Yeah, I don't know.
For me, at least, because I know, like, a couple days into it, my throat started itching and that kind of thing. And then, whatever day that was, I was like, my eyes felt like they were so swollen and tired, almost like I've never felt unless I was like really sick,
Yeah.
And I'm thinking it was just allergies. It's swollen up my eyelids, and then we had all that rain, and I guess that kind of knocked things down for me. But maybe it finally just came to a head within your head, and
there you go. Maybe so.
Yeah.
So let's clarify why there was smoke. It's not like we were cooking meat outside.
No.
Yeah. So
I don't really know, other than the fact that there was forest fires.
Yeah, like half the West is on fire right now, and I am this is a weird thing to say, but I'm a proponent of forest fires because, like, that's what's naturally supposed to happen. The problem is right now is that we fought fire so long in the West that, like, there's this huge amount of fuel built up, and there's way more fires burning than what there should be. Mm-hmm. So this year's been a really bad fire season because
wasn't last year too?
Yeah, last year was pretty bad, but I think this year's worse. Last year was the year that it actually happened in Texas and like Oklahoma and stuff.
Yeah,
and it was kind of crazy. But
I know I saw the Dollar Ridge fire like 12 or 16 hours after it actually started there in Utah. When we were driving, in July. Yeah. We actually saw that one. We were right pretty close to that. We saw that one, the one in Durango, which is a 416 or whatever, and then in Bozeman we got to experience that.
Yeah, and that wasn't from like one specific one. It's just the small ones around there.
Yeah.
But so why have we been in Montana, Tyler?
Well, for a couple of reasons, but one huge, big reason brought us there. I don't think the other reasons would have happened without this one, but the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, TRCP. You may have heard us talk about it before. If you listen a lot, we have talked about it before. And I think we actually linked to their website in like most of our episodes, I feel like.
Yeah. It's in the description.
So they're just really cool group of people that invited us out to their media summit last year, which was in Minnesota. And this year, it was in Bozeman, Montana. And we were really excited about that, too. And so we went, and we left out a few days early to do some hunting and fishing. And real quick, before I get too far into this story, while we're on the Montana idea, we've got a guy on the podcast today that is heading to Montana in the next couple of days to do some hunting. A lot of you may know him. He's a leader in our hunting community and especially our podcasting community, big influence, and a really cool guy, really well thought mind, and his name is Mark Kenyon from Wired to Hunt. So really excited to get him on the phone a little bit. But anyway, back to our Montana story. We were we showed up Thursday night. We landed about midnight.
Yeah, 11:56 I think is when we touched down.
Yeah, in Bozeman.
That's mountain time too. So
yeah, that was one where we were at. Mm-hmm. And I believe we didn't actually go to sleep until 2 mountain time.
Oh,
is that right?
It might have been later than that, man.
Yeah.
We drove around a lot.
So we thought, okay, we're going to Bozeman, it's Montana, like public land everywhere. We'll find a place to camp like in town nearly, you know?
Yeah.
And we had a few issues.
Yeah, just because it's public land or state land there doesn't mean you can technically camp on it.
Yeah.
Like each place kind of has its own rules and regulations for overnight camping, which I didn't really. I guess we could have researched it and figured it out, but you know,
it's cool to fly by.
Yeah, where's the fun in that? You know.
But we did find out that you can camp on a lot of state lands there. There's like possibilities, which if we'd have known that night, we wouldn't have driven around for like 2 hours, you know.
Yeah, but we actually ended up pretty much going up a road that we had no business being on in a minivan for 10 minutes or so.
Oh, it was, so, you know, we knew, like, okay, we're just going to go to the National Forest at this point, you know. And it was actually further away than I thought it would be, but it was not too bad. So we get headed up this road, and it's a National Forest road. If anybody's ever been on that, they're usually gravel or dirt. And this one was fine for a little while. After the pavement ran out, it was gravel, it was smooth. Then all of a sudden we start gaining a little elevation, and it turns into rut-raging rooster of a road.
Mm-hmm. Rockfest.
Say that 5 times
Rut-raging
fast.
rooster Rockfest road.
Anyway, we were in a Sedonia.
Yeah.
And we were not handling those. I don't know, it was weird. We were like peeling out from the front wheel drive some on that stuff. It was kind of like we didn't have enough weight in certain spots. I don't think they're meant to do too much forest road stuff. But anyway, we turned around as soon as we could. We took like a 5-point turn to get turned around and headed back down the mountain. And eventually, where did we even sleep that night?
We slept on the creek over there in Gallatin National Forest.
Highlight Creek? Yeah, so we just found a parking lot that had like 2 other truck campers in it, and we found a way. Luckily, my wife talked me into getting a minivan instead of like a RAV4, which we were looking at getting. And it was actually the best call of the whole trip, I think, because we had just enough room to sleep fully stretched out in the back of that minivan. Yeah,
and enough room to where we don't like touch while we're sleeping. Yeah, which is kind of that's kind of where I got to draw the boundaries, man. Like I'll share a bed, whatever, but just got to have a little room.
Yeah, I don't like feeling another hairy arm. You know, it's definitely weird.
Yeah, luckily we're both very like I don't know, very I wouldn't say sound sleepers because you kind of have a hard time like waking up or something.
Yeah,
but like we don't move around or aren't very cuddly at night, so it doesn't.
Dude, my body just knows. Yeah, that's true. My body knows. Like once it's like 4, sometimes a little bit later a.m. Like it knows that it's getting close to wake up time, and so then that's when I'm not a sound sleeper. Yeah, you know. But anyway, we slept in the back of that thing, which I've got an old football injury that is in the middle of my back, and after 3 days of that, I was ready for a bed. My back, the last morning, I was stiff until noon, pretty much. I was like, and I would turn around to look in the back, and y'all can't see me, but my whole body would basically turn to look in, different directions and stuff. And it's a rough thing to do. But we had sleeping pads, so Yours is a lot probably more comfy than mine.
Yeah, I think mine's better for like any surface kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, like yours would be fine for, you know, the dirt or leaf litter or something, but that one I have is a little thicker. But it worked out. I mean, it was an experience. You know, like it was fun. It'll be a fun thing to talk about, and we're kind of glad to tell y'all about it. You know, like we decided that like hunting out of a minivan would be pretty sweet.
Oh,
actually,
yes,
yeah.
We talked about like we need to buy one, dude.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, this is sweet. And in all honesty, like if I feel like if you could like find a way to put a like I don't know if they make it's somewhere between probably a twin and a queen. You know,
that's a full
air mattress. It would be like it would be a full probably, but I'm just saying like I don't know if a full is wide enough either. To where at that point if we're both sharing a full, we're probably touching hairy arms. You know, so. But it would be cool to have a little air mattress back there, and if you were a solo hunter, it'd be the dang thing to do, man.
Oh my goodness,
especially if you could find it in 4-wheel drive, which I don't think they make them. But man, that would be sweet. So I also wanted to say real quick before we go further in this story, another point that I was just thinking of is because we did a lot of public land scouting on our OnX Maps.
We did
during this trip.
I literally
for a lot of
spent
reasons.
like every moment that we were in the van. And I wasn't like looking at a deer out the window. I was looking at my map on my phone the whole time we were there. Yeah, it was like one of the most essential pieces of equipment that we had on this trip.
We used the mess out of it, and we have a giveaway for 2 OnX premium memberships that is happening on this episode. But we're going to do it at the end.
Ooh.
So you got to listen all the way through.
That's right.
But we're going to give those away at the end, so make sure you listen through the rest of this and Mark's part, because Mark has some really cool things to say as well. But we ended up finally getting to bed with TRCP. You know, gave us a place to sleep once they got there, and we had a great event, man. It was the highlights of that event. The key issues that surrounded that event were CWD, chronic wasting disease, which are the same thing, and public access was another big issue. What was the last one?
I think it was like that lease allotments for like migration corridors and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So
we talked about a lot of stuff. And those
it was actually a lot more involved in there, but there was 3 big components that we were supposed to talk about. And CWD was, you know, as you can imagine, if you know much about it, probably the most fiery issue there. If you watched our video on Facebook, we did a live video during part of one of our CWD panels, and
we all got fired up.
It got fired up for sure. And really, there's a large, I guess, advocacy or a large side of people who are with us on it, you know, so that's very neat for sure to see. And I love going there because there's so many, it's interesting because there's so many like-minded people there. But at the same time, like very much differently affiliated with, if you were to look at the 2-party system in the United States of America, you know, but all kind of have a common cause. And what I love about the TRCP is it's this environment group that is a partnership, really, that doesn't exist without partners. But the whole time we talked about hunting and fishing. Yeah. There was like, during this summit, there was really never even any pollinator talk or anything like that. And we had some of that last year. But like, it was, every single thing was, how does this relate to hunting or fishing, hunters and fishermen? And I love that. And all the people at TRCP, they hunt and they fish, they get outdoors, they do things that are a bit consumptive sometimes, you know, like, and that's a big thing for me. And so I feel like we really are. It's not that like one person in there is like looking to do this just because they want to go bird watching. Like they want to go find some organic meat, you know, in one way or another, a lot of them. So pretty much all of them. So that's one of my favorite things about that partnership, that group, that organization, and those people are just the people there. We talked about it, man. Yeah. They're just cool.
We live in such a polarized world of 2 parties, and both sides do it. They try to make the other side seem like the devil, right?
Yeah.
And it's not really the case, man. The lines are a lot more blurred than what a lot of us realize, and quite honestly, what a lot of people we're close to and talk to, even at this event, realize. You'll talk to someone and says, "Oh, I'm for this direction." Well, then they start talking, and you start conversating with them, and then you're like, "Nah, that's not really how it works." You have opinions about matters, and then sometimes that opinion, or that viewpoint lines up with one political party. Well,
right.
You might line up with a different political party on the next thing.
Right.
And I just feel like, man, kind of the broader message is that, and I didn't mean for this to be a big spiel about politics, but if you just don't affiliate with a party and just believe what you believe, I think you can make much more well-educated decisions and well-grounded decisions. How horrible is it to say, well, I'm just going to stick with this group of people because I know they know what's right for me, and not examine the facts. Right.
Well, I really can't ever see there being a third party, but it does feel like there's a movement towards this this kind of free thinker that can have beliefs that may side with the majority of one party, but and I feel like that will, like I said, it may never be that there's a third party, but that will ultimately turn into a candidate that matches up with those people.
Exactly. It can shape and mold the current parties.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that, man, the current parties need to understand that maybe we need to do something about this, but I'm not going to stand for them telling me what I need to be passionate about and what I need to think.
Right.
Because that's not how it works. I know what I need to think, and you need to connect with your constituency. That's what needs to happen.
Yep, 100% agreed, man. And I mean, we can obviously, this could be an entire podcast. We could go on and on.
Kidding.
But anyway, so the event was awesome. Great food, great people, and man, really just a whole gamut of different people from across the entire U.S. But we all got to go on a float trip. Was that yesterday?
My goodness, it was yesterday. Yes.
So yesterday we got to go on a float trip, and I have been on some trout trips where we floated, I guess you could say. We used boats, and they had motors on them, so it wasn't really floating. It was run up to the dam and then float down a few hundred yards. Or in one case, I floated Lake Taneycomo in Missouri, and it's a big tailwater that's flat, and you use more of your fiberglass looking kind of John boat thing, and it's just different than what the float trips are up in Montana. You know what I'm saying? A lot more rugged water, different pools and stretches and all that, and then the boats are a different whole different look to them and everything. It was just the classic thing that I've always grown up reading about and seeing pictures of in magazines and that kind of thing, and it was so cool, man. We got to float the Yellowstone. Were we the only people who didn't float the Madison?
I think so. I never talked to another person at our event, at least, that floated the Yellowstone that day.
I didn't talk to anybody who didn't float the Madison. And so, we told our guide, we were like, look, we want to catch big fish or nothing, kind of.
Yeah.
We went out Thursday and Friday and caught a bunch of fish. We fished the Madison and caught quite a few fish in that 8 to 10, maybe a few 11s. And then you hooked a really good fish that you lost. And that's they're going to be on a film, hopefully to be released soon. But, we caught a lot of small fish, so we were like, this is our chance to be up here in Montana and catch a slob, So we told the guide that, and I guess for that reason, he might have taken us to Yellowstone River. But, man, it was awesome. The river was super clear and just kind of aqua blue, deep runs here and there, and these wicked eddies, and we took a couple of rapids that were let water come into the boat, and everything. And it was a cool little half-day adventure, man. And we ended up not catching a ton, but I caught early on in the trip. I missed a toad early on, and then probably 30, 45 minutes later, I hooked into a really big brown, and the guide said he was 19, so. I didn't ever get an actual look at him, but I think he's every bit of 19. You know,
what's crazy is those browns. They're more girthy at 19 inches.
Gosh,
you know,
dude.
like rainbow, like a 19-inch rainbow and a 19-inch brown are different fish. You know, like a 19-inch. Don't get me wrong, they're both good fish, but like a 19-inch brown's a big fish. I mean, this is a fish you could weigh in the pounds.
Right.
You know, like probably a 4 or 5 pound fish. I would say.
Yeah, I'd say 4 pounds. You know, for sure. And man, it was awesome. Like I was telling KC last night, I was so exhausted, and I was telling him this, and I was like, dude, it was like you try to grab this dude. You know, you grab all these rainbows, and they're like just muscled up, you know, ready to jump out of your hand and then jump out of the water 6 foot and everything else. And you get this brown that's like mush. I mean, like, but he still has shoulders on top, you know. But like his belly he's just been sitting down there eating everything in the water, you know. And man, it was kind of crazy how much his stomach, you know, like I almost felt like he doesn't look as big as he was because I'm having to hold him, you know, obviously by his stomach or whatever. But I got some cool pictures. We'll post those up pretty soon, and so be looking for that on Instagram, Facebook. KC took some really great shots, and then I also caught a Yellowstone cutthroat that was pretty colored up, really cool fish. I don't know, maybe 13 inches or so, and which I've caught one. I caught one in July for the first time, but this one was a lot bigger and a lot prettier. And so anyway, right after that, we were getting close to takeout, and KC ended up pulling out the 11th hour rainbow.
I couldn't believe that, man.
Like a solid 16-incher.
I think is what he said.
Yeah, that's right, cut bow. Yeah, actually, I said that when he's coming in. I was like, man, kind of looks like a cut or a cut bow, you know. And you're like, yep, he's got them stripes underneath him.
Had the orange under his chin, but this fish, I mean, what were we like 75 yards from the bridge?
About that, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm casting this like hop. I can't remember if it was a hopper or what it was.
It was a parahopper.
A parahopper, that's right. Yeah, and a little cut bow comes up and tries to eat it, and misses it and sinks it, and then I leave it in the water, and like, I don't know, 3 foot of drift later, that big fish hammers it on the water, like, oh, man!
They're so sick,
yeah,
man.
and that was like, I kind of struggled most of the day, man. That float trip stuff's a different deal.
Mm-hmm.
I feel pretty confident wade fishing, and feel like I can have success most places, and man, that was tough. Line management was a big deal for me.
Yeah.
I had a hard time with that, but I was glad to finally pull that one out right there at the end of the day. It was fun.
Man, it was a cool trip, and we saw a ton of deer, so that was exciting, you know, and had a great time overall. We got to fly back this morning, so we're on the road headed home. And speaking of deer, we got a guy who's going to be hunting a lot of them in the next few months, Mark Kenyon. So I think we should get him on the phone.
Sounds good.
All right, so on the phone we have Mark Kenyon of Wired to Hunt. How's the summer going, man?
Hey, it's going pretty well. It's been a whirlwind. I can't believe that the summer is already done. I feel like I just blinked, and all of a sudden it went from April to now almost September. But it was packed with lots of fun stuff, so I guess I can't complain at all.
Yeah, man, I feel the same way. I got to go to Yellowstone for the first time this summer about a month ago, and was just up there again this week. So it's like that's a long ways from home for us. So. I totally understand, man. It's been a whirlwind, and it's exciting though that though it seems like it was a short time, like now hunting season's here and we're ready, you know, and hopefully that won't feel like a short time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, you want it to stretch out and enjoy it as much as possible, but the relentless whirlwind of life just seems to make things go faster and faster.
It does.
I was actually out there around Yellowstone for about a month this summer, so same as you, cool. Incredible trip. But having that big chunk of time away from home definitely does make it seem like all of a sudden you get back and you have no time to get 1,000 projects done that you need to get done. So the last week I've just been running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to get ready for hunting season. But you know, can't complain at all because that time out there in the summer is some much needed rest and relaxation, kind of reset time. So
absolutely,
it all works out.
Yeah, man. And we have those are the like core reasons that we tend to go to the Rockies in the summer. But then also the fact that it's like 100 degrees down here. It gets so old, you know. We're just like, man, this is it is time to go find some. It was actually, it was 98 at home one day when we were up in Bozeman, and it was 52 as a high up there. So it was like almost half this temperature. You know, it's amazing. It actually feels like the rut or something back home. Like, you know, we should be hunting outside. So I totally get it.
Yeah, it is. It's a nice dry, even when it is hot out there in Montana or somewhere, it's like a dry heat. It's not humid, which I don't know what it's like down by you guys, but up by me here in Michigan in the summer, it's just like you're swimming in the humidity.
Oh, yeah.
It's so sticky.
It's the same thing here, and man, it's so nice and dry in Montana that like my lips just crack open and it hurts the whole time I'm there. Just, you know, when you're so used to that humidity, I guess it just your skin conditions to it as well, and it's just a complete change. But I'll trade dry and cool for hot and humid any day of the week. No, no kidding.
So
sign me up.
Okay, here's just something that popped into my mind. You know, like when you're traveling around, you're spending money, obviously, and hopefully, you know, like we try to camp and do stuff like that to where it's not as bad. You save on that hotel cost and these kind of things, and split gas with your friends and stuff. But you know, like I feel like this. I was going to see if you had the same feelings, but like when I go and do that and then I get home, it's like, oh, there's all this junk that I have to spend money on for whitetail season as well, and then like it feels like I just spent money all summer. I don't know if that's the case for you.
You know, I don't know. I probably should do a better job of my budget so I can tell you exactly what it is, but I guess I don't do a good job quantifying it. But I tend to not feel too bad about travel expenses because in my, I guess the way I prioritize things in my life is that I prioritize experiences over stuff. So I've never bought a TV. Like I'm not the guy that has like a big fancy big screen TV or anything. Like literally I'm using the big screen TV that my parents bought in like 2005 or something like that then they got all these other TVs and eventually said, well, you can have that old junky thing if you want. So I've got like an old TV. I've got, you know, just different things like that. I'm not buying big fancy things. I don't have a big fancy boat. I don't have a big fancy house. So my dispendable income, I feel okay about using it for gas and for a couple nights out getting a nice dinner in Bozeman or whatever, because I know that I'm not blowing it on other things. So, you know, when we do these trips, whether it be trips for hunting, which I do a lot of, or, you know, as I alluded to earlier, we spend the last 4 or 5 years now, we spent 2 to 3 months living out west, and we're doing that now just camping the entire time. So spending a couple months living in a camper for free on national forest land, or maybe in like a fish and game campground where it's, you know, $10-12 a night. So it's really cheap compared to quote unquote vacationing that most people might do in a hotel or renting a house or something like that. So, you know, keep it simple. At least do the things that myself, when I'm out there with a family, that my wife enjoys too. It's more so just spending time in the outdoors, which is free and available to all of us thanks to, you know, public land. So that kind of stuff I don't feel too bad about. My whitetail expenses, you know, you have to get some gear, you have to get some things like that. That stuff does add up a little bit. But again, it's one of those things that I'm okay spending a little extra time on or money on, because it is one of those top couple things in my entire life. So I make it work.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I get that train of thought for sure. So when I don't know exactly how to formulate this question, but kind of, let's see, you know, outside, if you're an outsider as far as the hunting industry goes, so say you're just a regular Joe, you don't have some brand to withhold, some product to market or make money off of within the hunting industry, how easy is it to be a 365 whitetailer?
So if you're just a dude or guy or girl that loves whitetail deer hunting, it's super easy to be a 365-day deer hunter because there's so much to do. There's something you can be doing at any time of year related to chasing deer that it's a great way to spend your time for a relatively low amount of money. If we're talking costs, you don't need to spend a ton of money to do this kind of stuff. B, anything you're doing outside of the hunting season is definitely going to help you throughout the rest of the year. And third, it's just a whole lot of fun. I mean, one of the things I love about deer hunting, and it's funny, I have got to dabble with different types of hunts. I've gone elk hunting now the last 5 or so years. I've gone caribou hunting, black bear hunting, antelope hunting, turkey hunting, of course, all that kind of stuff. And I'm intrigued by all these different things, and I get excited about them. And every, maybe it's like February or March, I'm like, oh man, I'm so fired up for elk hunting. I'm going to make this trip happen. But every year when it gets to be like August and September, even though I've got like an elk hunt coming up and some years I've got other Western hunts, I'm just so darn obsessed with whitetails. I can't think about anything else.
Yep.
Like I can't even think about prepping for elk at all, because all I can think about is what tree stand I want to hang, or where I got to have a camera, or what I want to do on opening night. So yeah, I'm thinking about it almost every day, every night for the last like 2 weeks. My wife's fallen asleep, and I've pulled up my cell phone. I've been looking at maps, watching hunting videos on my phone up till midnight every night. So it's an affliction.
Oh yeah.
But there certainly is something at all times of year to keep you busy. So in the winter, you can be doing a lot of scouting. You can be planning some of these things. You can be scouting in your maps, walking the properties. Once you transition, a little bit later into the spring, I'm a huge shed hunting fanatic, so I love hiking around looking for antlers. Of course, that's a great time to scout too. And then, once you get into early summer and summer, if you've got a place where you could do a little bit of management, of course, all sorts of habitat projects you can work on. If you don't, that's still a great time to be out there scouting for deer, glassing fields, hanging trail cameras, trimming lanes, hanging your stands. Literally, you could have no other hobbies in the world, and you could fill all of your free time just with deer.
Yeah.
So, I always tell my wife that it could be a lot worse. At least I'm not going out to the bar all the time, or a gambling addict or something. If I had to be obsessed with something, this is a pretty wholesome way to do it.
For sure, man.
Yeah. So, do you ever find that you are relieved, like whenever, say, I don't know, that time right after maybe shed hunting's over, or it's kind of green up and it's hard to find them, and maybe you've already killed your turkey for the year, and there's just like that little gap in your like 365 hunting life to where you can stop and breathe. Is that a good thing for you, or are you just filled with anticipation for it to start all over again?
I will say that there are usually 2 chunks of time during my year where I do kind of let myself lose focus a little bit. And that would be immediately after hunting season. So usually my hunting season ends at the end of December. So usually like January into early February, at least January maybe, I let myself just not think about stuff. I kind of need a breather from whitetails. I need to just reset. So that's one of those times. And then the time you just mentioned, like usually maybe June into early July, somewhere in there is usually when I'm taking off out west and I'm really thinking about fly fishing or climbing up mountains or backpacking or something like that. Those are some of my other passions too. So that's the time of year where I do like a little break like that. It's nice to go do some other things, a little change of scenery, but inevitably it ends up pulling me back out. Like you guys were just talking about being out in the Yellowstone River or in that area. I'll be out there camping, hiking, fishing, and then one night I'm driving back to a campground and I pass an alfalfa field and there's 60 deer in there and a bunch of bucks. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh man, I need to be scouting these fields. And then the next 7 nights I'm sitting over being for an alfalfa field with a camera trying to watch deer. So it always sneaks up on me and sticks its hooks right back into my heart.
Yeah, no kidding. Every day, Mark, every day we drove around, saw whitetails everywhere, and I'm on my maps constantly trying to figure out where the closest public land is to that spot. It doesn't matter how far away you get away from home when you've got, a great mapping system, like OnX is what we use, something that'll just show you where you can hunt no matter what. It's like, it's fun to dream about that, even if maybe you might not hunt there this season or whatever. But do you think that, you talked about how like right after deer season, you kind of slack up for just a bit and kind of catch your breath. Is that pretty dependent on how that season went for you, or is it kind of always that way?
I'd say it's always been that way for me, or at least the last 10 years.
Yeah.
When I've been, since college, I've been out of college about 10 years now or so. So since then, I'd say most seasons I'm pretty burnt out. Like I go really hard for 4 months. So I usually am just in need of that break. Although I probably shouldn't. I probably should, because that's a really, really good time to be scouting.
Yes.
All that immediate postseason sign you can see, but you don't need to care at all about spooking deer. I'm probably making a mistake. I really should be out there scouting and doing some stuff, but I've just kind of found for my mental health, I just need to check out just a little bit, and not to mention for my relationship health. Usually I need to make some serious amends with the wife by then. So to keep that thing alive, I guess that month off is okay.
Yeah, no kidding. I wouldn't say that my wife and I have an ebb and flow in the quality of our relationship, but there's definitely an ebb and flow in just how satisfied she is with the time I spend with her, between the summer months and the winter months, just because, man, deer season, you know how it is. It's getting, you're in the stand till after dark, and you're not getting home till 8 or 9, or, down here it might be after 10 in the earlier seasons, because we have longer days. But, yeah, it can definitely put a burden on that. What's your best tip for, all three of us are kind of at the same points in our lives where we're young and married and figuring this whole life thing out. What's your best tip for, keeping, a good marriage and being a good spouse throughout the hunting season?
Yeah, it's something that is one of my top challenges that every year I'm really trying to work on and trying to do a better job of that, because, I have an unbelievably understanding wife who's willing to put up with that, but I know it's not easy on her, and I probably don't even realize as much as it is. So the things I try to do to I guess, make the best of it, or make it as least inconvenient as possible, is that, of course, in the off season, I'm trying to prioritize her as much as possible, trying to make sure the things that she needs help with, or the things around the house, or whatever it might be that I might not be able to do as much of in the fall, make sure that's taken care of ahead of time. Mm-hmm. During the season, I try to find, a weekend here or there maybe that I can not hunt, and set that aside as like and it might be a little different this year because we've got a baby now, but in the past it was kind of like a us weekend. So we go and try to go somewhere for a short weekend trip, or I'd stay home for the weekend and plan something out with her. I'm sure we'll still do something like that, but it'll be more of like a family of three kind of event instead of like a date type of thing.
Yeah, sure.
But that helps a lot. And then, the other thing, to your point a second ago, you talked about how you get home so late at night. A lot of times you're spending a lot of time in the tree. What I have found that I do that's a mistake is that even when I get home from hunting, or when I'm home during the day maybe, and then I'm going to head out for an evening sit or whatever it might be, I have found that I'm not mentally present. So my wife has called me out on this, because one year I stayed home. I didn't travel at all to hunt during the rut. I stayed home for like 2 weeks or whatever it was during the whitetail rut, and hunted close to home. So I was home at night. I was home, I guess I really wasn't home most days in the middle of the day, but I was home at night at least. And I thought that was a good thing. I thought, hey, I'm home in the evenings. This couldn't be that bad. And she kind of called me out and said, yeah, you're physically there, but you're not there at all mentally. Your body's here, but your mind is elsewhere. You're thinking about stuff, you're planning stuff, you're messing around on your phone, you're fiddling with this gear or that gear. So what I'm trying to do a better job of now is to not just be there physically when you are home and around during hunting season, but be there mentally. Like really be present in the moment with your kids or your wife, and make that quality time, because you're not going to have as much time there together. So make sure that when you are there, that you're not checking text messages or looking at trail camera pictures or talking to your buddies on the phone or sitting there daydreaming about where you need to hang your stand the next day. Try to set all that stuff aside and really focus on your relationships. That's something. I'm not saying I'm the best at that all the time, but it's something that I'm trying to get better at.
Yeah,
definitely going to be focusing on this year.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. The mental thing is a big deal for me, because I love looking at maps, and I'll be sitting in bed looking at a map. My wife's trying to talk to me, and I'm just not the greatest at that. It's almost an addiction of mine. Like, it's almost, I'm fulfilled by that as much as I am for actually hunting the animal, But, and you're talking to a guy here who got married November 19th, which I don't know how on earth she ever talked me into that. I really do love her. It's really a good testament, I suppose, to our love for each other. But I tell her, and this is, I'm kind of leading into the question I want to ask you about this, but I tell her that, like, okay, you get the 19th every year, no matter what, I'm going to be there the whole day for our anniversary. So, but I kind of prefaced that before we were married. But at the same time, I feel like as hunters and as passionate, especially for whitetail as what we all are, like we're constantly growing and trying to do more and be just more enveloped in this chase for the animals that we love. So throughout our marriage, even though she knew I was a hunter, I don't know if she ever knew that how much she was biting off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Did your wife, kind of know what she was getting into, or have y'all had to kind of grow into that and both be understanding in the situation?
Yeah, she knew she was, getting into a little bit of a situation, like a pretty serious hunter. When she first started dating me, she knew that I was a big deer hunter, and I was gone on the weekends and stuff, off chasing deer and whatnot. But I'd say, within like a year of us dating, I graduated college, and then I was, she kind of saw, okay, yeah, this is more than just like a weekend hobby. This is a lot of the time. By the time we were married, she definitely knew that this was a big deal, but it definitely has grown more and more, because not only am I just chasing whitetails, like for a while there, I was just chasing whitetails from October through December. But then I started going out west and hunting elk and whitetails in the early season that are opening in September. So now I've added a whole another month. So now September is off the table. So yeah, she knew a little bit, but it definitely has evolved. And kind of funny, you mentioned your November 19th wedding. We specifically tried to make sure that we were getting married outside of the main months of hunting season. So we got married, this is bad. I think it was September 8th.
Oh, no.
Oh, man.
This is a bad confession right here.
Yeah, I'm 99% sure it's 8th, possibly the 7th.
This is awesome.
But the thing is that 2 weeks after I got married, I went on my first elk hunt. And ever since then, I was like, oh, wow, I'm never not going to hunt elk again. And then 2 years later, I went on my first Western whitetail hunt. And then I was like, oh, yeah, I'm never not going to go out here and hunt whitetails in September. So now for the last 3 years, I've been out hunting and missed our anniversary. And I'm doing it again this coming week.
Oh, man.
And she's been okay with that.
She's a jewel, man. That's so awesome.
She really is.
Yeah.
So, yep, my anniversary is usually spent in the tree stand while my wife's 2,000 miles away. And God bless her. She's the one and only that could handle me.
Yeah, no kidding. I kind of set a good precedent on the elk hunting thing. I went and I haven't killed a lot of elk, but I killed a bull, 2 months before we got married. So for the whole first year of our marriage, we ate elk meat. So now my wife's like, yeah, go. You need to go elk hunting because we need that meat. That's what I want to eat, So it worked out kind of well for me on that deal.
Yep, that's a great way to get away with those elk hunts. Is once they get a taste of that, it's hard to say no. You always want that in the freezer.
No doubt. Right. So, speaking of kind of how your season has expanded over the years, what does your schedule look like this year?
Oh man, it's a little bit of a crazy one this year. I'm leaving in 2 days for Montana, and I'll be chasing whitetails up there. And I've got about 10 days budgeted. And if I fill my tag in Montana before that time frame is done, I've got another spot I've scouted out in North Dakota, just across the border, that I'm gonna head over to. So in a perfect world, I hunt Montana for a handful of days, kill a buck, head over to North Dakota, hunt there for a few more days, then head home for about a week. And then I'm going to head back to Montana after that week at home and go elk hunting. That'll be about a week-long trip. And then I'll come back home and then focus hunting in Michigan. I've got 3 main parts of the state where I hunt here in Michigan. The southern Michigan kind of core spots that I hunt the most. And then I just got permission on a big new property on the west side of the state that I'll spend some time on. And then my family has a little 40-acre deer camp up in the northern part of the state. So there in the early season, I'll kind of bounce around between those 3 spots. And then mid-October, I'm planning on heading to Minnesota and doing a canoe-in backcountry whitetail hunt in the Boundary Waters.
Oh, man, that's going to be sweet.
Yeah, so I'm pretty stoked about that. And that'll be a week, and then I'll come back for a few days and then head to central Nebraska with a friend to do some hunting up there. And then I'll come back, focus then in my main Michigan spot where I've got this one buck I've been hunting for a handful of years. Gonna spend like 7-10 days straight trying to get him killed. Hopefully that'll work out. And then I've got a hunt with Ranella and the MeatEater crew at my West Michigan property. And then it'll be up north for a bit. And then in December, a late season hunt, possibly in Wisconsin. And then in Mexico, in January, it looks like I'm going to go into Mexico for a Coos deer hunt.
Cool.
Oh, my goodness.
That'll be cool. That's quite a schedule, man.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how it all works out. And I'm trying to, fortunately, a decent amount of that stuff's in Michigan. So I'm hoping to be able to get some quality family time in there. But there's a handful of trips there that'll take me away. And I love traveling. I love traveling to hunt. But with a new baby, I can already tell it's going to be different. The times have had to leave so far, I've just miss him like crazy. And already I'm kind of looking into the next couple of days and thinking, man, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave my little buddy. So that's going to be a little tough.
Yeah, that's a tough thing, man, for sure. I've dealt with that some. And I don't know. I feel like once you're out there, especially if there's somebody with you, it's a little easier to pass the time. But if you're kind of on a solo deal or something where you have more time to kind of meditate on the fact of what's going on back home and in your life and that kind of thing, it can start to bother you pretty good,
Yeah.
So what are you after when you're traveling to hunt? I mean, for a lot of guys, they see these price tags of the tags that you have to buy out of state as a non-resident, and it's kind of either intimidating or off-putting or just not something that they desire. And I feel like maybe that the digital revolution and all this information that we have these days kind of creates like a lust, maybe in a bad way sometimes, for traveling to hunt, whether that be like Iowa for the biggest deer on the planet or, just for, I guess, social purposes to kind of build up who you are as a person in the friends of your peers, I guess. And I know that there's more pure reasons, and I'm sure that you have some, but why do you travel?
And this applies both to my hunting travel and my non-hunting travel, but I just crave new experiences. I love adventure. I love the unknown. I love seeing new places, figuring out new places, exploring new places. So, as I talked about earlier, we do a ton of traveling in the spring and summer, my wife and I, hiking, fishing, camping, whatever. And during the hunting season, I like to do the same kind of thing. So I have that same kind of wanderlust as a hunter. So, I'm traveling Montana, North Dakota, Minnesota, all these different hunts. Most of what I'm looking for is just an experience, like a fun new set of experiences that's different than what I'm used to, that provides a new challenge. I really, a big part of what I'm doing here too is trying to push myself to grow as a hunter, to figure new things out, to experience these things. So, when I go to Montana or North Dakota, there's this challenge of finding new public land, finding these new spots, living out of the back of my truck. That's a solo trip. So just kind of doing my own thing for a week. But it's a really cool, different kind of experience because there's really high deer numbers compared to where I hunt here at home. You see a lot more mature bucks. It's just really cool from like a wildlife observation kind of standpoint. You're just seeing incredible numbers of animals, and that's a lot of fun. Plus, it's just beautiful country, so different than what I hunt here in Michigan, just big, wide open spaces. So that's a unique, really cool experience in itself. I'm not going out there trying to kill, some kind of size deer or some antler score or anything like that. I'm not trying to do something that's going to impress anyone, but it's a unique, different experience that excites me.
Right.
When I go to Minnesota, that's going to be the kind of trip where any deer, if I even see a deer, I'll probably be counting that as success. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be a really interesting new challenge because I got to put everything I need to survive in a canoe, paddle way out in this wilderness where you can't have any motorized boats, you can't have any vehicles, you can't have anything like that. You are just, everything that you need has got to be in that canoe with you. And in the North Woods, in the late fall, it could be a blizzard, it could be swelteringly hot. And it's big woods, gnarly, thick terrain where it's really, really hard to find deer. So I might not see anything, or I might see a spike. And so for me, that's an adventure, though, that I want to experience. I want to see that place. I want to feel that place. I want to get to know that place. and also experience that challenge of trying to find a deer there. So if I can kill a spike and then get that deer out of the wilderness, can I get that in the canoe with all my gear, paddle that sucker out of there without tipping over and getting pneumonia? That would be an adventuring experience that I know I'm going to find really valuable and exciting. And then so on and so forth through all the other things I've got coming up. I get what you're saying. There definitely is, like, especially now with how much social media we see all these other people taking all these trips. It's easy to kind of get that kind of grass is greener on the other side, or Facebook envy or whatever, and feel like you need to be doing this stuff, or if you want to get a big buck, you got to hunt in Iowa like Mark Drury or whatever. It doesn't need to be about that. I think there's something really cool about just exploration. I think we as humans in general crave that seeing what's over the next hill kind of is just kind of built into us. Yeah. And I'm able to kind of scratch that itch with these trips and try to do it in a productive fashion and not neglect all my other obligations too much along the way.
Yeah, yeah. And this is one thing I really appreciate about you, and I think a lot of people that connect with you connect for this reason, but it's like, it feels like every time you have a thought about something, it's that you've thought about it. It's not just something that's coming off the cuff. It's not something that is some like emotional thing just blabbering out of your mouth all of a sudden. You know, it's like you, and I don't know, I would guess that this comes from a lot of time on the stand, being able to kind of reflect and think about things, you know. But I really do appreciate that. And you know, you kind of spoke to this earlier, but you know, you're talking about the big picture of exploration and experience, but and you did speak to this, but you know, I think experience can be broken down into smaller moments, like short moments of the hunt sometimes. And so, like for instance, we're floating the Yellowstone River a couple days ago, and I just had this weird moment where we're floating down the river, and I'm super focused on every little pull and eddy and, you know, seam and everything, and I'm trying to hit all the spots. And then all of a sudden, like, I don't know if I had, like, caught a fish or something, but I had, like, a brief moment where I wasn't focused in on that stuff, and I kind of looked back behind me, and there was fresh snow on the mountains in August behind me. I'm floating down the Yellowstone, and I'm like, I literally just smiled in the back of the boat, and I know nobody even saw me, you know, but I just had this, it's weird, but I had this moment where I'm like, I've been reading about things like this, snow in August, and, you know, expeditions down the Yellowstone to try to catch a big trout, and all the importance of the Yellowstone River in general, and I'm like, I'm sitting here floating down this thing right now. That is cool, you know, and that was one of those tiny moments, or the moment where, like you said, when you go to Minnesota, you're looking for any deer, man. It's not about shooting a big buck at that point or a mature buck at that point. It's about that short moment that satisfies you personally, you know, like if you're proud to shoot a doe and it comes in, you know, that's great. Or like in the case of KC last year, we had a deer that he would have never shot from the stand probably on a piece of property come in to rattling, which was like, doesn't happen very often where we're at. And we were on the ground, and he comes blasting in there at like 20 yards, and he was about to shoot him until he ran off, you know. He saw us. But it's kind of one of those things where like that experience, that little experience almost changed what your expectations were and what you thought you would get out of it suddenly, but in the end, if the result would have come out that he shot that deer, it would have been personally satisfying. I feel like, you know, you kind of get what I'm saying. Do you feel that way sometimes?
I definitely do. And something you mentioned there is something that I always try to make sure that I do as well, and that's just taking a moment to appreciate those moments, because it's so easy for us as hunters, I think, or whatever you're doing, whether it's fishing or hunting or whatever, especially maybe it's a personality type too, but I am very achievement focused and goal oriented, especially when it comes to things like my hunting. So I pour so much time and energy and work into these things that I can get consumed in it and just be focused on what that actual end goal is. But I try to make a point to catch myself, where I like step out of the moment and kind of look at it from like a 30,000 foot overview. And so just like you said, while you're fishing there, I'll find myself sitting in the tree stand. I'm stressing out about the fact that the wind's not quite right, and was my access route in this morning just as good as I wanted? And man, it's 8:30 already, and I haven't seen anything yet. And it's November 7th, and the rut's been horrible, and I'm so tired, and I haven't eaten good all day. And my wife's mad at me, and I'll be sitting there, and all this stuff's going through my head, and then I'm like, whoa, like just hold on. Breathe in that air. Like, how crisp and clean is that air, and how beautiful is that blue sky right now with the red and orange and yellow leaves, silhouetted against it. And there's, 3 does walking out in front of you. Like, just enjoy that. Like, so I try to do this as often as I can, to stop, to kind of press pause on life, and then just look at everything, like soak it in. Like, really, I'll try to like taste the air. I'll try to like listen to every little sound. I'll try to look all around me and just try to almost take like a mental photograph. Like, enjoy that little tiny moment. Just be appreciative of like how great this second is. So sometimes I get too wrapped up in things, but I try to do that kind of thing often.
Sure.
And that helps out a lot. I think that's an important thing to do.
So, being a goal-oriented person, like your travels and going and doing all these, exciting new hunts, is that an opportunity for you to set and reach new goals, or is it an opportunity for you to like escape that goal-oriented person that you normally are?
It usually ends up being still goal-focused. But it's like it's a fun way of doing that. So, like the Minnesota trip's a great example. That's something that is there will be a goal. It's going to be a big challenge. Like most everything I do is related to some kind of challenge, something new that I'm going to have to push myself to try to figure out, or see how I can handle this set of experiences or challenges or circumstances. So with the Minnesota trip, it's going to be an escape from the usual kind of whitetail hunt. I'm not going to be stressing out about a mature buck. I'm not going to be trying to pattern some specific deer. So it's going to be an escape from the usual. But it's still going to be a really interesting challenge. I mean, it's going to be a tough hunt. It's going to be just a tough physical endeavor, getting in there, getting out of there, handling the elements, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, most all my trips, there usually is a focus. There's a challenge element to it, but then also like an experience element. So like the Western whitetail hunts, I'm going, yes, because it's a different challenge, but also that's just one of those like landscapes I love to be in that does help me kind of step outside of the usual. So I guess it's a combination of both, but inevitably I do find myself, at least with the hunts, I always do have some kind of goal in mind. So I set some kind of goal, and I'm always pushing myself towards whatever that might be. So Minnesota, the goal is going to be survive and get a crack at any deer.
That's a good goal. Surviving is probably being goal oriented. When survival is the goal, that's probably a good time to have that drive.
Yes. So that's the case in Minnesota, but like the Montana trip, it's going to be, I'd really like to get a crack at a 4-year-old buck. I know it's possible out there. I haven't done it yet, but I know there's some great 4-year-olds running around up there, and, trying to find a good piece of public land that I can get into without other people mucking it up. So that's going to be a fun challenge. And then on like the Michigan hunts, I'm definitely a different, a 3-year-old might be really good in some places. A 4-year-old, it's all different. Sometimes it's an age thing. Sometimes it's an experience thing, I guess. On my northern Michigan deal, that's one place where I do escape everything, because that's more of an opportunity to travel up there, to be with family, and to like get back to my roots and just enjoy kind of the tradition of deer hunting. That's always like November 15th through the maybe 18th or 19th or somewhere around there. I go up to this little one-room cabin we have up in the northern part of the state, spend some time with my dad and uncle and a couple friends, and that is a great kind of re-centering event in my hunting season every year, where it's kind of the craziness of the rut has kind of gone by. Our gun season opens up, and I can just take some time, enjoy family, enjoy just all the outside parts of hunting that make it so special. So it's not just about sitting in a tree, but it's also about the camaraderie. It's also about the stories. It's also about coming into the cabin late at night. You smell, chili dogs on the oven or the stove or whatever, and a cold beer, and playing cards. And then the next morning, everyone's telling each other good luck and shaking hands, and all those little things that make it really special too, that I get to enjoy at that time frame, that other parts of the year I'm not able to do as much.
Yeah, that's awesome that you have the appreciation for that, because Tyler and I talk about this a good bit. But the whole deer camp aspect is something I feel like is starting to get lost, in the way that we all, especially as whitetailers, we kind of have this independence, where we go out and do it on our own, and it's kind of a solo thing anyways, at least nowadays. You don't have the big deer drives, or when I was growing up, we had deer camp in South Texas, and it was so cool. And I feel like it's awesome that you can still escape and go to that place and still have those experiences. And then now, since it's a family thing for y'all, you'll be able to pass that on to your son, and it's just, it's cool. And I can tell that you look forward to that, and it's awesome.
That way.
Yeah. And, honestly, on a personal level for me, I'm excited for your Boundary Waters trip, because my mom's family is from Ely, and I'm sure you know where Ely is because of that.
So you're on the map many times.
Yeah, and I've been up there a few times, and kind of always fantasized about doing a Boundary Waters trip. Not so much hunting, but I'm very intrigued to see how that goes for you, and wish you the best, of course, but just ready to I guess just absorb that through you, because it's going to be an awesome trip, an epic trip, no matter how your hunting success goes on it.
As long as you don't die.
Yeah, as long as survival is your goal.
Yeah, that's an important one.
Yeah,
got to check that one off the list.
Yeah, for sure. How do you prioritize on these hunts like this? I'm sure if you're like me, you've got 15 hunts you want to go on, and you can't do them every year, and you got to pick out your 2 or 3 that you really want to do. And I haven't come up with a good experience factor scale, so to say okay, this trip's a 8.3 on this scale, so I want to go do it first. How do you prioritize the hunts that you want to go do, and then kind of schedule them? Do you have a 5-year or 10-year outlook on how things are going to go?
Yeah. So I can't say I'm terribly good at this either. I definitely don't look that far in the future. I unfortunately kind of fly by the seat of my pants, partly because just kind of life's crazy in general right now. Lots and lots of travel between hunting and business, and then our family travels, and we do a lot of that, like I mentioned. So I'm definitely not looking out past this year. So usually I'm planning out trips in the winter. So, January, February, March, April, I'm dreaming of what would be cool. And, there's usually a couple staples in my year. So the staples are usually got to have some good stuff lined up around home here in Michigan. I usually like to have one other state that I can hunt during the rut. And then now I've kind of added this September trip where I'm pretty sure every year I possibly can, I'd like to do some kind of Western whitetail trip. So that's kind of been the things that I found I really love. I really want to make sure I can do. And then if I'm able to add something in there as a bonus around that time frame, I'm going to do that. I have found, for that rut trip, that Midwest rut, I got to be somewhere, at least in my, what I do for a living is I talk about deer and I film deer and I write about deer. So of course it's important to be in some good locations during the rut to experience some interesting, fun things to share. And not to mention, I love that too, but it's also important to be able to share that stuff. So, I guess as I'm prioritizing that time frame, I'm trying to pick an area that's going to produce and that's going to be just the right fit for that kind of thing. Now, I have, as I alluded to earlier, I'm interested in more and more of these kinds of adventure whitetail hunts. So I want to, there's 8 billion people talking about hunting in Iowa, and there's 2 million people talking about hunting in Kansas. And we kind of see the same thing over and over right now. And it's fun. It's amazing. It's great. But I think that there's something really interesting about doing some of these things like the Boundary Waters hunt, or I've thought about, going to some of these very off-the-wall locations and backpacking in for a whitetail hunt, or doing a float trip for a whitetail hunt, or, living off the grid for 12 days, spiked out, bivvying on a whitetail hunt, chasing whitetails in the mountains, chasing whitetails in the desert, chasing whitetails in the big woods, chasing out or whitetails in the swamps of the south. I want to start at least each year, do one trip like that. That's this different whitetail excursion, to show that, whitetail hunting doesn't just need to be sit over a food plot behind your house. And I have nothing against that. I do that. But I think you can also have a really interesting adventure too. And, pursue our favorite big game animal in that kind of way too. So the Boundary Waters is my attempt at that this year. Next year, I've got a couple ideas that I've been thinking about. So I want to try to prioritize at least one adventure style type deal too, just to kind of look outside of the boundaries of what we usually think about when deer hunting is on top of our mind.
Yeah.
But I guess I don't even know if I answered your question. I'm not sure I've got a good way of prioritizing either. I just kind of go with what sounds interesting and fun, and that possibly could line up with my schedule and budget and that kind of stuff. And every year I kind of figure it out. And then as far as like the trips themselves, because I'm going so many different places, and both during hunting season and outside of hunting season, I am not preparing as much as I wish I would for each hunt. Simply, I just don't have time between all the other things. So I'm kind of figuring stuff out just ahead of time. Like I spent a week, a couple weeks ago, I was in Colorado and Nevada, hiking up some mountains and doing some backpacking and fishing with a friend for a project I'm working on. And this was like his big trip for the year. So he'd been thinking about it all the time leading up to it. And he was texting me for months leading up to it, like, hey, do you have our itinerary planned out? And where are you thinking about camping? Do we need to make reservations? And I kept saying, oh, I haven't got to think about that yet. I'll text you. And then it wasn't until literally 3 days before the trip that I finally said, okay, I figured out where we're going to go. And I think it really stressed him out. So
yeah,
unfortunately, I'm just that's just the necessity of how I'm running things right now. But in an ideal scenario, you'd be planning things out way far ahead of time than I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I feel like that's some of the excitement too. Like that, if you plan things out too much, it's just almost so facilitated that it's not an adventure anymore. You know, and don't get me wrong, like there's always things that go awry, or something weird happens, and the trips, anytime you leave like what you're used to, it's an adventure. But it's kind of cool to, like, for instance, like we went to Bozeman this past week, and for 3 nights didn't know where we were going to sleep, until we got there. And what's cool is that, we've got this, this tool of this public land that we own that we can, kind of fly by the seat of our pants like you're talking about and be able to do that. But, if and don't get me wrong, I really love to, like I said, look at maps and figure out where we're going to go and do this and that. But if you end up sticking to, like, too much of a protocol or too much of a plan for like what you're going to do, sometimes you actually lose that experience because you're so caught up with this that you're missing all these little things that you could actually be enjoying along the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100% agree.
Yeah.
And the one thing I'd add just on the hunting front, I do think that traveling to different places to deer hunt is something that if you are just aspiring to become as effective of a deer hunter as you possibly can, like if that's something that drives you and that you are really passionate about, if you want to become the best possible deer hunter you can, I think you are missing out if you only hunt the one property close to home that you've done forever. Mm-hmm. I really would advocate to try new places, to go outside of that comfort zone, to go to different states, to go to different regions, to experience different habitat types, different levels of pressure on that deer herd. I 2,000% believe that that's made me a much better deer hunter because of that travel and that exposure to different situations.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to keep in mind too.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. Like it's funny how, like there's this idea of hunting that we develop. It's kind of our hunting ethos, like as we grow when we're younger, and this one thing that we really love, like, here, I love public land in Texas and doing that thing, and it's a blast. But the more I travel, the more I do other things, the more I'm willing to let go a little bit more of that each season to go do these other experiences. And it's kind of strange. It's not that I want to lose that. It's just, man, there's just a bigger world out there, and the more you travel, and that's an overarching concept of travel in general. It doesn't just have to be for hunting. You hear people, bloggers from all walks of life talk about that stuff. It's just kind of travel really can change who you are as a human. But so for folks that really, might seek to do some of this traveling and going and seeing new places and hunting new creatures or hunting whitetails in different places, there's always like this underlying desire for success. Don't get me wrong, I really like the idea of, going to an obscure place and doing a whitetail hunt, or here recently it's kind of been a buzz on social media for like the July whitetail season in Florida, and that sounds really cool. But I kind of would like to go somewhere where I actually feel like I have a decent shot at an animal. Not that I have to have success and in killing an animal to enjoy it, but so kind of along that note, do you think that like people should be a little bit more open to their choice of weapon when it comes to going out of state and maybe trying new things? I'm kind of traditionally just a bow hunter mostly, but I can just see a world where like if success really kind of helps you enjoy a trip, that picking up a rifle and going out to one of these western states that has rifle seasons could really kind of bolster that for you.
Oh yeah, I mean it just comes down to what's going to make you happy, or what's going to satisfy you, or what the experiences that you want. I think that's just going to be different for everyone. So for me, and I've got nothing wrong with gun hunting at all. I gun hunt some too, but for whatever reason, for a lot of these trips, I just find the idea of going out there with a bow more fun. Like that's the experience or the challenge that I want. But certainly if someone doesn't have that, that same thought or feeling, oh my gosh, going out there with a gun is going to turn your odds way, way up. Mm-hmm. It just opens up so many different possibilities. And you can still have, you could certainly still have a great experience. I mean, last year, this is kind of an extreme example of it, but I went on a caribou hunt last year, and I originally thought I was going to do a bow hunt because that's kind of what I always use when I go on any trip. I pretty much just gun hunt back home and on that deer camp I talked about. So I assumed I'll do a bow hunt, but because of the logistics that came up, it was a hunt with some other folks, and they were going to be rifle hunting. It turned out, well, I guess I should rifle hunt. And I kind of thought at first, that's not going to be what I want. It's not going to be the same kind of hunt, blah, 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 blah. But, it doesn't make that huge of a difference when it's that kind of cool experience. Like, there's still an adventure to be had there. Mm-hmm. There's still this new place to see. There's still all the other challenges that are going to be there. So it's just to each their own, whatever kind of deal you want to go for. But there certainly are opportunities. I mean, for example, in Iowa, I've always thought about this. Like, am I stupid for applying for the archery tag that I can only get, every 2 to 4 years, when you can get a muzzleloader tag for a lot of these units every year? Mm-hmm. A lot of us could hunt Iowa almost every single year if you drew one of those muzzleloader tags, which in a lot of units you can. Mm-hmm. But I'm just stubborn, I guess, or I just want that archery experience, or I want the rut experience and know that my chances of killing something are much lower than if I went there with that muzzleloader and, out there in whenever it is, December or whatever, you could probably kill a really great buck every year. But for me, again, it comes down to, in certain situations like that, I want that certain set of things or experiences rather than just the tag wrapped around an antler.
Right.
So I don't know. Yeah. I kind of feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but I guess it just kind of comes down to those same core ideas.
Yeah, for sure. So what's the best tip that you could give a traveling hunter?
I guess I'll do part one and answer part one and answer part two. Because
sure.
The first part of my answer is, again, reiterating kind of what we're saying here. It's that I would recommend, if you're starting to travel to hunt, to not get too hung up on filling that tag or achieving whatever your ultimate goal is. Because it can get really frustrating, especially going to a new place, not knowing what you're doing. It's challenging, right? There's a whole lot of things, a whole lot of obstacles that are going to come up that could throw you off your game plan, that could make it really hard for you to, if you've got some kind of really high pie in the sky goal, and if you're so focused on that, and if you can't enjoy yourself unless you achieve that goal, that's a real bummer, especially if you are sinking valuable, rare vacation time into it, or you're, the funds that you've saved up for this trip. If the only thing that's going to make that money spent and that time spent worthwhile is killing a deer and filling that tag, you're really rolling the dice there. And I would much rather go into any one of these trips just knowing, like, hey, right from the front, I'm always telling myself, of course I have these goals. I'm very goal oriented. I'd love to achieve this goal. I'm going to work my tail off to do that. But no matter what happens, I'm going to enjoy it. whether if I see a billion deer or if I see one deer, if I kill a giant or I don't shoot anything or I miss 4 deer, no matter what happens, I am going to enjoy this experience. I'm going to learn something from it. Because life's too short to just be miserable or to not enjoy these chances we do get to go out and do the thing we love.
Right.
So I would say, number one, try to go into it with a number one thing in your mind being just enjoying the experience, learning something, enjoying it, just doing what we talked about a second ago, taking a second to step out of it and look at the sky, look at the scene, smell the air. That would be the first thing I'd say. Mm-hmm. And then number two, I guess, as far as, trying to be effective as a hunter, I would just recommend, if you've got the time and if there's like your one big trip, obviously put in as much preparation as you can. This is not any kind of revolutionary idea here, but simply put, the more prep work you put into it, the more likely it is you're going to be able to achieve your goal of filling that tag. So whether it be going in the spring for a scouting trip or in the summer for a scouting trip, preparing stands or walking the property or whatever, if you can't do that, just lots and lots of time spent looking at maps, maybe try to find some locals, call a local game biologist or something like that. Try to learn anything you can do to stack the odds in your favor. Try to do that. I guess my third tip, I'm really bad at this, as you can see. I'm giving you
all the tips. We'll take any tips. I mean, you can go to 50 if you want.
And my one other thing would be to be adaptable, though. So do as much preparation as you possibly can. But as soon as you get to that location, stuff might be completely different than you thought. Anytime you travel outside of your comfort zone, anytime you're going to a new area, you are at the mercy of the elements, you're at the mercy of other hunters, possibly. There's so many different things that can change. So you just have to be able to adapt. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to go into it and change things completely. So just don't get stuck in a rut. So if you planned out and you had these 2 tree stand locations on your map maybe that you thought were going to be great, maybe you hung stands there in the spring, you've looked at it 1,000 times, you've had cameras there, and this is it. And you show up, and on day one you don't see anything, or maybe someone else hung a tree stand right next to you, or whatever it might be. I would just say be willing to change, be willing to be mobile, be willing to reevaluate and adjust. It's really easy. This is something I think they can apply even when you're hunting at home. It's really easy to go with whatever's comfortable, whatever is easiest. Even the hardest working of us are still tempted to be lazy a lot. If you've got a set tree stand and it's there, and it's a whole lot easier to climb up to that tree stand and sit there, and maybe it's not the best spot to be, but it's less of a pain in the butt than having to take that stand down and move it 100 yards down. It's really easy to fall into that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I'm guilty of it sometimes, even still today. I'm trying every year to get better and better at being willing to change. You got to be willing to change to the circumstances that are present now. Not what you wanted them to be, not what you thought they were going to be, but what's happening right now. I think that's so important on these traveling trips, especially because you've got a limited time frame. You've got 5 days or 7 days. You can't afford to sit back and take the easy way when things are not the way that you originally thought they're going to be. So that's some very high level advice, but I think those are a couple of core concepts that everything else then kind of falls underneath.
Yeah. Great tips, man. In this year going forward, is there one tactic that you're focused on that will elevate your game, or maybe allow you to focus in and get a shot or an encounter with your target buck that you were speaking to earlier?
I think there's 2 things maybe for me. I think the biggest change I'm making this year is that I'm trying to do what I just told you guys. I'm trying to do that even better than I've done in the past. So I'm trying to become more mobile. I'm trying to make it easier for me to be more mobile, to change things up, to be adaptable. So I'm doing that by adding a tree saddle to my repertoire. So rather than just hunting with a portable tree stand and climbing sticks, I'm now going to try this whole saddle deal where you kind of get up into a tree and you hang in this kind of harness type deal. And that just makes it a whole lot easier to move around, because I don't need to haul a tree stand and sticks around me all the time anymore. I don't need to pull a tree stand out of the tree. I don't need to hang a tree stand. I'm basically wearing my tree stand. I'm wearing a harness, and I can either take a set of sticks with me to climb up into the tree, or I also have these these new individual strap steps. So it's like a little plastic step with a strap around it, and you can put each individual step up, but it's really lightweight. So it's a dozen steps, and they can't weigh more than a couple pounds, maybe max altogether. So instead of having like, a 12, 13-pound tree stand and maybe 8-pound steps, so you're talking at least 20 pounds, maybe more of tree stand gear, plus your harness that you're wearing. Now all of a sudden I've got like 2 pounds, and that just makes things a lot easier to go hiking into new places, to move around. It just removes one more obstacle to doing things the way I know I should be doing them. So I'm hoping that's really going to allow me to do things different, to hunt new tree stands, to not get stuck hunting the same spot 3 or 4 times. Instead, I could have 4 hunts that's the first time ever in that tree. I think every time you're hunting a new place for the first time, you've got a better chance, simply because deer aren't onto you yet. So I'm just going to try to do that a lot more. I'm going to try to have a lot more first sits. And I think that's something that can help me kill my target buck, this buck I call Holyfield. And I think it can help me on these different travel to hunt trips as well. So that's the biggest change. And then the one other thing that I've been focusing on, and I started this last year, and that has been just changing how I shoot my bow to try to just become a better in the moment bow hunter. I kind of come to realize I've had a little bit of like a target panic deal, where I've rushed a number of shots in the past, and it worked out fine most of the time. I've only wounded one. I only wounded one deer that I didn't recover during that time frame, but I found myself, I just knew that I wasn't as much in control of the situation as I should be. And I that's not acceptable to me. I don't want to know that I'm not doing it just right and just keep doing it that way. I had to change it to try to get better, to try to be able to be more effective and more responsible hunter. So I've changed this new style of shooting my bow, where I've kind of got a different set of mental processes I go to that kind of keeps me in control of that process. And then I'm also shooting with like a back tension style sequence. So that I started at the end of last summer, didn't end up killing a deer, didn't end up shooting a deer with my bow because I was chasing this one deer and never got my shot at him. But this year, hopefully I'm going to be able to put that to the test. And so I guess this is going to be the year where I find out if all the work I've done on that, on relearning how to shoot my bow in that way, hopefully I will be able to see the fruits of my labor on that front. So I think those are the 2 biggest changes that I'm making. Yeah.
Awesome, man. That's exciting. I look forward to following it. And, man, I can't say thanks enough for doing this and just for your integrity and leadership in our community, man. It means a lot. I know Casey and myself, and I'm sure a lot of people out there. And best of luck this fall, Mark.
Hey, I really appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate the support. I appreciate anyone who's been following along with what I've been doing. That time and interest and attention means the world. So I've just been really, really blessed to be able to do this and to share what I've been doing. So anytime I can give back and chat with folks like you guys, it's a lot of fun. So
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, man. Well, we will talk to you soon, I'm sure, man. Send us some pics.
All right. Good luck to you guys too.
All right.
Thanks.
Man, from a guy that likes to travel a lot, those are some good tips for sure.
Yeah, no kidding, man. And I can take a lot from Mark, because that dude is about to go do a lot of cool things, and I like to do cool things as well.
Yeah.
So, and that's something that we can all probably do a better job of, is being willing to learn from other people, because I'm so independent sometimes and I want to do things my way. But man, if you can look at other people and see what they do that works and what doesn't, you can kind of really adjust that learning curve. And that's really what podcasting is all about. It's about sharing information with people. Well,
how much did we learn? We talked about this. How much did we learn from Ryle on the float trip?
Yeah, man.
I mean, and stuff that can be, it's like you said earlier, it's a totally different deal, and you had a lot of things to learn just about floating in general and line management and everything. But we could take stuff from that to our wade fishing. Some of the stuff that we learned, I feel like, and it would be helpful. So it really is cool, man. And speaking of experience and learning stuff, we learned something at the airport today that if you're traveling, you might want to take note of.
Yeah.
KC, I feel bad for you, man.
It's not that bad, but it does kind of stink. They changed the law pretty much while we were gone. I don't know if I guess it's a rule, not really a law, but TSA no longer allows you to carry tents on the plane.
like a tent that you sleep in when you're camping.
Yep.
Not because of the like material, but it's the poles. Apparently, the poles they think you're gonna like kill somebody with.
Yeah.
Well, we made it through security in DF-Dub and made it up to Montana with the tent.
Yeah.
But we show up at 5 a.m. this morning at the airport, and like, man, I hate to tell you this, but can't do that. I was like, no, are you serious? And like, we didn't have enough time to go back and check the bag or what they were saying you could do that. I was like, no way, I ain't risking that, you know. So
well, then you got another, 25 or whatever bucks in the tent and everything.
And to be honest, this tent's about 6 or 7 years old and still plenty of life in it. But I got it on sale. It is a good backpacking tent, but I spent like $30 on it, so like it was a really good deal, you know.
Such a good tent, though.
It was, man. It was a good tent. I'm kind of sad to lose it. So I don't know if you are going to go visit Bozeman, Montana anytime soon if you're listening, but if you do, you might swing by the Lost and Found or Claimed and get a cool tent over there. I don't know if they'll give it to you or not, but you can try.
Yeah, they're all weird about everything. It drives me a little bit crazy, and I know it's probably for the betterment of the people or whatever.
Yeah.
But
the people we talked to at the location were cool about stuff. You know, they were like kind of joking about it a little bit, like, dude, I'm sorry, you know, or whatever. You know, it's just, but it's the broader TSA that's kind of iffy sometimes.
Right.
But yeah, Bozeman Airport was cool though in general. You know, like it's kind of neat when you go to these places where everybody that is going through that airport, more often than not, is going there to have fun some way. So everybody's just in a good mood.
Yeah, for sure, man. It was a disappointing loss this morning, but we made it through, and now it is time.
Moment you've all been waiting for. I can do a baritone now pretty good because I've had the cold. So
yeah, for sure.
Say some bass things.
Okay, I'll see what I can make you do here in a second.
Sounds good.
So we're going to go ahead and give away the OnX premium memberships that we've been talking about for about a month now. There were 28 entries, so 28 reviews on the podcast. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
I went to random.org, I believe is what it was, and there's a random number selector, and I put 1 to 28. And I pressed search or whatever it is. Not search, but
Shuffle.
Select or whatever. And the first one that came up was number 19. Who was number 19?
Number 19, BLSL 86.
Way to go, BLSL 86. I don't know who you are, but if you will send us a message one way or another, we would prefer for you to go through the website, theelementwild.com, and send us an email through there at our contact page, and we will send that OnX free premium membership to you in the mail. Thanks for participating. You guys, man, y'all had some great reviews. We were also giving away another one.
Wait,
we had
there's
2 to give away. That's right.
Oh my goodness.
So you had a 1 in, what is that, 14 chance?
That's pretty good math on the spot.
That's pretty good chances of winning one. That's pretty good chances. You're sitting there listening wishing you were one of those people. I guarantee you. So anyway, we gave away one more, and we selected another random number, and that was number 25, correct?
Number 25.
Who is number 25?
Number 25 is Hoyt 1113.
Hoyt 1113. Congratulations to you. You need to send us a message as well through the website, hopefully, or you can do it through Facebook and Instagram if it's easier for you. And we will send you a free premium membership. Again, guys, thanks so much for all the love. It means a lot to us, and we've really been able to see who's listening and get some feedback through this and understand what you guys are enjoying about the podcast.
That's right. And by all means, thanks for your reviews, but thanks for your support in general.
Yeah.
It's really cool that y'all actually care to listen to us, or at least listen to us ramble before we get somebody on who really knows what they're talking about in the meaty part of the interview. But on that note, if you like what we're doing, tell your friends about it.
Yeah.
And, everybody's got a hunting season coming up. We're going to be driving to the lease or to the stand or whatever. And we're going to have some really good interviews and talks lined up for the fall that'll really, we hope, at least help you find whatever success you're searching for in the deer woods.
Great guest for sure. And we were able to meet the founder of OnX this weekend, and he was a really, really nice dude. So we feel very very good about doing this giveaway. We feel very good about using that product, and I hope that you guys do the same. I hope you guys are staying cool out there, because we were for a while, but we're back to the grind of heat and sweat. So we're going to get out of here. I hope you guys have a great week, and God bless. And remember, this is your element.
Living it.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. MeatEater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. MeatEater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new MeatEater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, MeatEater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24th, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.